Hello Facebook, hello YouTube, hello internets and the world. Good morning. We are broadcasting from Portland. We are in the hot tub. I am back from my road trip. I think I'm sporting maybe not spectacular bedhead this morning, but some decent bedhead. And today is an interesting day. Today is the first day since Allison and I bought our home that I'm wearing swim trunks. So I can give you some butt shot there. I'm wearing swim trunks because Allison's parents are here. They've come for us to celebrate an early Thanksgiving. And this was actually what sparked the idea for today's video. So I'm in my hot tub, I'm in Portland. Where are you all out in the world? And let me see if I can scooch over and give you a better view of the trees. So with Allison's folks here, it had me want to talk about coming out to your family. And because Allison and I had to have a conversation about her mom and dad obviously know about our lifestyle, and we just needed to kind of figure out, do we stay naked in the hot tub? Is the hot tub still clothing optional? How do we make our home safe or less stressful for her folks? So hide the dildos and parent proof the house, so to speak. And it had me thinking, because we were laughing and texting back and forth with her family about being naked in the hot tub and whether that was thumbs up or thumbs down, and it was just kind of we laughed about it and chuckled on the family text about it, which is also, I just want to say I'm very grateful and I have a lot of gratitude for Allison's folks for being able to welcome me into their home. And I also grew up in a really lucky situation with my mom and dad, because they certainly didn't understand why I was non-monogamous and why I was queer when I came out to them. But they basically kind of, their party line was, as long as you're happy, as long as you're healthy, we love you no matter what you do. And I just want to recognize that so many people don't have that family situation going on for them, and that can make life really just suck, or just fucking suck. But I think talking about coming out to your folks, to your family, to whatever that means, to your kids even, I think that's really a really powerful and important subject. And I just want you all to know, who are watching, that I don't really have a judgment as to which choices you make. I think you're the only one who can really make the choice for yourself in your situation, and it can be tricky. And if you're lucky enough to not have it be tricky, then acknowledge that you're lucky. It still was work. It was still work for me coming out to my folks and my family. But overall, for me, it wasn't a lot of stress. For other people, it's a lot of stress. I know people who've been kicked out of their homes as young adults, or even as adults. When they had to live at home. I know people who have had had to go to court and threatened to have their children taken away by, parents or in-laws that were not excited about their life choices. Hang on here, let me just fix the camera. And so I'm not saying it's an easy choice, and I don't even want to say that there's a right or wrong choice. I understand from an activist perspective, the more people, kind of like a Harvey Milk situation, where, but if you don't know who Harvey Milk is, you can Google Harvey Milk. But the idea of the more of us that come out, whatever we are, kinky, poly, gay, trans, whatever, the idea that the more of us that come out, the more people get to understand, oh, my neighbor is this, that person is that, and it normalizes things. I understand that argument, but I still want to, acknowledge in my belief that you need to make the choices for yourself. You need to do what's healthy and right for you. And so if you need to stay in whatever closet you need to stay in, awesome. Like, I'm gonna support you in that. Even if I disagree in my head with your choices, I'm still gonna support you in doing what you need to do. Because what we don't need in the world right now, that's my hot tub cover, what we don't need in the world right now is more shaming and blaming and feeling broken or wrong about our life choices. So that's just kind of like my general context for that. Tips and tricks and ideas about coming out and when you should come out. I'm gonna say probably not the best idea to come out at the Thanksgiving dinner table with everybody around you and just kind of blurt it out in the middle of the family dinner. Probably not the best way, although that's definitely the way that we would write it into a movie in Hollywood, because then that's got the most potential for dramatic and comedic effect. And I think that we get role modeled those kinds of popular media coming out, and so I think it subtly affects people, like how some of us come out when it's our choice to come out rather than you're discovered or outed by another family member. This has happened to my sex worker friends and my friends who are gay and this and that, poly and kinky. Like, they get outed by a family member or some other situation, and now all of a sudden they're out and they have to deal with whatever family outrage or community outrage is happening. Allison and I now live kind of in suburbia, even though we've got all these beautiful trees. Like, we're 4 minutes away from the movie theater and Home Depot. I think we're 6 or 8 minutes away from Home Depot. So, like, we're in it. We have neighbors, and like a block up the street is where it really starts to become kind of kid heavy in the neighborhood, with kids in 7th and 8th grade and things like that in high school. So if and when our neighbors discover that Allison and I are sex educators, and I outed myself the first day we met some of our neighbors, as that we're sex educators, and Allison's a writer, and that we do a lot of talk about consent and how to avoid and lessen sexual assault on college campuses and things like that. Like, I gave them a nice little pitch that we're the safe sex educators. If you have kids that have questions that are too freaky for you, you can send them to us. Like, we're the safe ones. But at some point, some of the neighbors might get concerned that I'm running blowjob workshops and teaching people how to throw play parties and things like that. So we'll see. We'll see how it goes. But what can you do to prepare yourself for if you ever get outed, if you want to stay in the closet? And again, like, staying in the closet can also just be that your line is, like, your party line for you is, like, it's nobody's fucking business who I fuck or how I fuck, or who I love. So, you can also be in the closet because it's just where your privacy settings are set, and not because you're afraid of everyone knowing parts about yourself. I just think that's really important in this day and age, to really just kind of reinforce that you get to choose until that choice gets taken away from you. And if you want to be private or stay in the closet, and and you're not thinking a little bit about, well, what happens if and when I'm non-consensually outed, it might be useful to put a little bit of thought into it. Just just so that you can emotionally prepare yourself or emotionally prepare you and your partners for those kinds of things. How I came out to my mom and dad and my advice. What I did was, and now this is kind of, we're moving into Thanksgiving territory. I had an opportunity to bring my boyfriend home and my girlfriend home for Thanksgiving. And I never brought a male lover home for a holiday before. And I just want to, for the person who knows who this I'm talking about, I want to thank her for basically telling me that if I didn't invite my male lover home, then she wasn't coming with me for Thanksgiving. She basically gave me an ultimatum. She's like, you can invite your boyfriend because he's available and he asked what we were doing for Thanksgiving. And if you don't invite him home for Thanksgiving because you don't want to come out to your family, I don't feel comfortable coming home with you. And that was where she drew the line. And it really forced me to consider, like, oh, well, maybe this is time. Because it also felt incongruent for me to bring my boyfriend home and to tell my family, this is my friend, and for us to pretend like we weren't romantic. That felt like it was going to be me insulting him and insulting our relationship. And so what I did was I used the difficult conversation formula, which you can go to readaboutsex.com/convo, CONVO. And I wrote everyone in my family, my immediate family, an email explaining to them that I had something to tell them that I'd never told them before, explaining why I didn't tell them up until now. Like, here are the things that I'm afraid of might happen if I told you this thing that I need to tell you. And then I listed a bunch of reasons what I would like to have happen by telling you. And then I told them in 2 sentences, I'm non-monogamous. It's called polyamory. You can look it up on the internet. And I'm queer. I have a boyfriend and a girlfriend, and I would like to invite them both home for Thanksgiving. May I bring them home with me? May I invite them home with me? Now, in the past, with my mom and dad, and also with my brothers, I would kind of spring things on them during the holidays. I would come home and I would tell them like whatever was new, and usually right before the end of my trip, and then I would hit the road and disappear. Or I would be bringing like my new girlfriends home for the holidays, and not like not telling anybody, but nobody knew who these people were. Like, there was no prepping anyone. And I got some feedback from my brothers that it was like, it's kind of weird, like 1 year you're dating and in love with this person, and I'm trying to get to know them. My wife and I are trying to get to know them and make them part of the family, and then the next year it's somebody new. Like, we don't know who we're supposed to be investing in. And so it came to me with my lover's, support, like, I need to give them a heads up. I can't just show up with my boyfriend and my girlfriend. Like, that would be totally shitty. So that's why I sent the email. And at the end of the email, it said, I'm sending you this email because I have had a tendency in the past to just surprise you with things. I will call you all in a day or two to just check in and see how you're doing. So I gave context to why I was sending them an email. And I was giving them the email so they had a couple of days to digest the information before I called them up. And this was like 2 weeks, I think, 2 or 3 weeks before Thanksgiving. So that's kind of how I figured out that I would do it, and that would be the easiest way. It would make sure that everybody had a chance to kind of process, and then I would talk to them in person. The other reason I would recommend this as an idea is once I hit send on the email to my first brother, it was like the cat was out of the bag. Like, I had to follow through on the other emails, which were basically kind of copy and paste. And so once I sent the emails, there was no takesies backsies. I had to then call everybody. Like, I guess I could have chickened out and not called them, but the cat was out of the bag. and it was easy for me to call everybody. The irony was my mom and dad were the people that it was really hard for me to get a hold of. I just kept calling and just kept getting their voicemail. So I was getting anxious about not talking to them. And it wasn't like they had caller ID, so it wasn't like they were ghosting me and not picking up. But like I was nervous because this was a really big deal for me. And my conversations with my brothers went great. One of my brothers, it inspired, he's a born-again Christian, so it inspired this huge conversation for he and I on the phone, and we'd never, we'd always loved each other. I was very lucky with my brothers, how much we care about each other, but like, he and I had never had this deep of a conversation about identity and, our spiritual beliefs, and, that was really meaningful and important to me, that that conversation, and it made our relationship much deeper, and so that was a really good thing. With my family, it went pretty well. Like, even when I talked to my mom and dad, they were less worried about me being queer and more worried about another big man coming home for the holidays. And my dad's concern was legitimately if the house septic system would be able to handle all the people having to go to the bathroom that weekend for Thanksgiving or that Thursday. Like, that was his concern. So I'm as vulnerable as I am, and there's actually a really funny body storytelling story about this, so I'll put that in the link about me coming out to my family. But one of my most vulnerable moments with my father, and he's worried about the toilet overflowing. It was really funny, and it made me realize that this is how my dad says that he loved me. Like, he's like, we love you, but is the toilet going to overflow? And my dad wasn't much of a talker anyway, so it wasn't like we were going to have this big 2-hour conversation about identity politics or anything like that. So, like, maybe secretly I was hoping for that kind of father-son bonding, but that wasn't what happened. We talked about the septic system. So just recognizing that went really well for me, and for somebody else it could have been completely different and a horrific shit show, no pun intended, with a lot of family anger and upset and betrayal and all these other things. But the idea of using an email that people can read over and over again to process, that can be useful, and it can also be challenging because if you have parents that don't handle it well or family members, and then they start forwarding that email to all of your second cousins, also just kind of try to consider or talk to other people who've come out. What are some of the things that could go wrong that you're not predicting? I was okay. Obviously my mom and dad handled it really well, but I was okay if they forwarded that email to my aunts and uncles and stuff. Like, I was going to be okay with that. But maybe, for you, that's going to be a whole different situation, because maybe your family, your immediate family handles it well, but your aunts and uncles it's going to be a shit show there. I don't know really how to help you with that, but I think it's stuff you should consider before coming out, especially if you have kids and things like that, and coming out to your kids. Maybe I'll do a fun interview with somebody, a peer of mine, to talk about coming out to your kids. The general consensus with children is that after a certain age, like when their kids are really smart and they see everything. So like if you're kinky and you don't know, and you think that your kids don't know, odds are they've kind of figured it out, that mommy or daddy or whomever, whatever adults are around them, are different. And it seems to be from my friends and peers that have kids, and as long as kids get consistent love and some consistency about certain kinds of like structure, that as long as you're having a healthy relationship and you're being real with your kids, and you love them, they seem to grow up really healthy and resilient. And it becomes problematic or challenging later when they go to school and they start telling, mommy and daddy like to wear leather, and one of them is a pony. So again, having conversations about what happens, what do we do if blank around coming out, that can be really useful. So my phone's telling me it's about to run out of battery, as it always does. And thank you for joining me today. Happy Veterans Day. Happy Veterans Day for everybody here in the U.S. And Alex Morgan had Facebook posted or tweeted, a little shout out to disabled veterans and family members and loved ones of disabled veterans. So I just want to kind of copy and paste that, and also just give a shout out to veterans and our disabled service members and that, and just say, thanks and happy Veterans Day to everybody. And I hope this video was useful now that the holidays are coming up. So leave some comments, and I'll put some links in the description when I get out of the hot tub and I'm done hanging out with Allison's parents. And just want to send love to everybody. Early Thanksgivings and all that. And thanks everyone. Bye. Oh wait, and I'll put a link for tomorrow. We're having a free webinar on relationship stuff. It's going to be awesome. So I'll put that in the links as well. Bye.